be the president of the Book Haters Club.
Yeah.
How was how was your tenure as the president, and how did you transition from that to somebody who now writes books, and we are talking about the book?
Yeah. I really think it came from like I did not read my first book until I was 19 years old. I didn't read a full book until I was 19 years old. And it was as a result of taking a sales job that I had took just after getting kicked out of college. And what we would do is every single day before we would go out and sell, we would read a chapter from the book Think and Grow Rich, and then we would go out and we would sell. And that was the first full book that I read. But my reading turnaround came from Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, but it also came from another opportunity. I had opportunity to have lunch with a billionaire with a B from Australia. It was Mr. Peter Daniels. And I remember sitting down with Peter Daniels, and we were sitting at the table, and I had my notepad and my pen out, ready to ask questions. And I asked him, I said, hey, what's the one thing that I could do that would make the greatest difference in my life? And without any hesitation, he said, read. Now, in that moment, I kind of paused, like many people watching right now, said, okay, yeah, read, right? But here's what he said. He says, Chris, he goes, I attribute my billions of dollars to reading over 5,000 books in my lifetime. He says, and at the age of 27, I was an illiterate bricklayer. So he could not read at the age of 27, at the age of 75, a billionaire because of reading. And he said, Chris, what happens is when you begin to read, what happens is you build inside of your mind a vocabulary of overcoming insurmountable odds. He goes, your mind doesn't know the difference between reality of what you're putting in or what you're thinking. And so you can put in whatever you want and move it in the direction that you want. So that's when I began to turn up the reading. Now, I had thought that, man, at that point, I was reading like maybe a book every couple months and thought, oh, I was doing good. But when I got around him, I thought, oh my goodness, if I could read a book a month, oh my goodness, this would be incredible. So I began reading a book a month. But then I was getting around people that were reading, saying, hey, I read about a book a week. And I thought, oh my goodness, a book a week, 52 books in a year. And so I began to increase the muscle, and I began to pick up my speed of reading, and I began to read 52 books in a year. And then I began to get around people that said, I read about the equivalent of a book a day.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh my goodness, how in the world does a person read a book a day? And so I began to increase that. But I had a hatred for reading because, quite honestly, I was a slow reader. Quite honestly, I didn't see the point of reading at an early age of like, how is that going to help me? Why would I spend, $15 on a book, $30 on a book? Why would I invest that money? But what you have to understand is that a $15, $30 investment could change your life forever, because one idea executed well could change your life forever. And so I started out not wanting to read, but as I progress and as I begin to see how books are the foundation and how fast they can move me and how I can shortcut my learning, oh, that desire to consume reading just really fueled and got me into way different levels of life than I would ever been in had I not chose to read. And so what I tell a lot of people is like, they ask the question, well, Chris, how did you go from here to there? I said, hey, I'm just like you. The only difference between you and I is a couple thousand books.
Yeah.
The only difference between you and I is a couple thousand books, right? And so reading